generation of warfare, psychological warfare. In modern conflict, the mind is a potent weapon. Discover General Michael T. Flynn's groundbreaking guide, The Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare. Unlock tactics, strategies, and the mindset to navigate this cognitive battlefield that we all find ourselves in. Equip yourself against manipulation and emerge unscathed. Unleash your potential. Order now.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got a loaded day today. Look who's in front of you. We got a powerhouse roundtable. We got Josh Reed, Mike Jaco, AlphaWarrior. I think somebody was paying Alpha today to get him on here because we can never seem to get him. So I'm just reinforcing to the entire national audience that Josh Reed owes AlphaWarrior a check, some money for getting him here. But these guys have been you guys have seen Mike and I here oftentimes with Nino. Doing a lot of work together. Josh and Alpha, you guys have been doing some phenomenal work together. I mean, as this whole thing is shaken out, you guys have kind of risen right up to that top and doing some amazing stuff. So congratulations. What's the world looking like the day after Davos? I mean, I saw part of the speech. I listened to other people's commentary on it. And like you said, Josh, this is it. Shit is changing so fast all over the world now. It's on. The storm is already on top of us. The storm's on top of them, and amazing things are happening. So let's turn it loose. What do you guys have to say about?
First of all, let's let Josh talk about. We were just discussing Air Force One and how it had to turn back around. Josh, what are your thoughts on that?
What's the story?
Well, number one is we were live last night, me and Alpha, when this all broke. And we were wondering what was happening. We saw Air Force One turn around, head back to Joint Base Andrews. Then you hear that they're deplaning. They're getting on another plane. Mark that one, Air Force One, getting ready to take off. It's electrical issues. In all my history, 10 years in the military, my whole life, I've never heard ever of Air Force One having mechanical or electrical issues. This is something that doesn't happen specifically with these types of military aircraft. These things are checked over 100 times before the president actually gets in them. Carolyn Levitt said that the lights flickered in the press room, went off, they went dark, and then came back on. So my thoughts, because we had a similar type of event many years ago during Trump's first term. And this was when Trump was leaving the G7 in Canada, and he was going to go to Singapore to meet with Kim Jong-un. And he was supposed to go west. His flight plan was leaving Canada, going west, going to Singapore. And we have what's called the Whidbey Island incident. And if everybody remembers this video, it's a slow frame rate video, probably 2 or 3 frames a second, which appears to be a missile rising up from the water. Now, the Air Force Base, the Navy base is all out there, and Washington said, it's not ours. We don't know what it is. They claimed it to be a helicopter in a slow frame rate camera. I've been on U.S. Navy frigates and watched SSBNs launch ballistic missiles. This is exactly what it looks like. And so we knew that this was a missile that was coming up. Most likely what happened is you have a submarine. We learned later on. So this is for the Q boards out there, for anybody who doesn't know this story. June 10th, 2018 is when this all occurred. June 11th, Donald Trump gets to Singapore. He meets with Kim Jong-un. Now, this is where it's interesting because he says missiles stopped, but he spells stopped wrong. Happens to be he spelled the word stopped wrong the same way Q did in December of 2017 on a post talking about missiles stopped. So direct correlation right there between Trump and this. But what happened is Air Force One actually went east. They went to Rota, Spain, refilled, and then they went on to Singapore. So they changed their flight itinerary at the last minute. Now, if people don't remember how this all played out after this, is that on August 10th, 3 months to the date of the Whidbey Island incident. Now, before this, Q was kind of putting out information about rogue vessels, rogue submarines, stuff like this. On August 10th, you have the SeaTac incident. If you guys remember, there was a hijacker that hijacked a Q400 or a Dash 8 aircraft, double prop from Alaska Airlines from Seattle Tacoma Airport. Yeah. This guy was a baggage handler. Number one is I worked on an airport for 8 years at United Airlines. I had a SITA badge. This is your security access badge to get into an airport. Baggage handlers don't have access to hangars. They have no need to have access to hangars. So it's almost impossible for this kid to have gone into this hangar, grabbed this plane, pulled it out, got in it, never flown a Dash 8 double prop aircraft before, takes off, does loop-de-loops, but he does something interesting. While he's being tailed by 2 F-15s, he forms a radar signature of a Q around an island called Ketron Island, right? Now he's in a Q400, forms a Q around Ketron Island, and then he commits suicide into the island and crashes and supposedly dies. At the time we did research on this, we find out that this guy, his Facebook page, he had 5 friends on Facebook. Every single one of them was a wife of a general in the United States Air Force or the United States Army. Then his Facebook page disappears. His name, kind of interesting, Richard B. Russell. Why is that interesting is because if you've ever read Fritz Schweinmacher's The 13 Illuminati Bloodlines, one of the bloodlines is the Russell family. Now, Admiral Richard B. Russell, just happened to have a submarine named after him. That submarine was decommissioned, guess where? Washington State and Ketron Island in 2003. And after 2004, that island went from a military industrial complex into private hands. But it still had an underground submarine facility for maintenance, upcare, and for docking. So we looked at this as that was the submarine, deep state submarine they had. They launched a missile at Trump. He went the other way. That submarine was most likely comms dark at that time. And so they wouldn't have got the word that the flight itinerary had changed, and they wasted a missile. By the way, June 11th, 2018 is the same day that Donald Trump removed John Brennan's security clearance. So all of that directly correlates to the Whidbey Island incident. Now, I think that something similar just happened. I think that the reason that they turned around wasn't because there was something wrong with Air Force One, but because there was either something on board that they had disarmed, taken off, that there was a rogue submarine that was waiting to launch. They chose another flight pattern, went back, changed the time frames. The submarine's going to be comms dark. They wouldn't have known. And I know Alpha has some theories too, but this is my thoughts on what happened last night.
Yeah. So in one, I love how you tied the Whidbey Island into all this. So last night when we were watching it, so I did just see something right now when I went to go pull up the post that we missed it last night. Maybe it's something, maybe it's nothing, but I think you'll be interested. One of the things that I was telling Josh and I was trying to find the post to share it with you guys. Oh, here it is. This came in at this was from Rapid Response 47, so one of the official White House accounts at 9:36 p.m. Eastern time, and they quote POTUS. It's a video, and it says, "We're going to Davos. This will be an interesting trip. I have no idea what's going to happen, but you are well represented." End of quote. And then they put a laughing emoji, and and I remember telling Josh when we're looking, I was just like, there's nothing humorous about that. There's no trolling like he does. There's no funny to that. But they put the laughing emoji with the little tears coming out of its eyes, and I'm like, that's kind of interesting. Almost like they knew something was coming, and we're like, you ain't getting us. And so what I was telling Josh is, there's no way they're gonna allow POTUS to board a plane that has some type of electrical or mechanical compromise. There's not. They're running so many checks over and over while he's doing whatever he's got to do. It's not going to happen. So there was another post that we found, and it said, boom, deactivated, POTUS hostage. This was the post. If you want to find it, Josh, I think it was either 9:36 or 21:36. And I said, well, that absolutely has some context of what we're talking about. If they had put some type of a device for an assassination attempt on Trump as he was going to be heading to Davos, one, it opens the board to all kinds of motives, which would have confused people because he's going to Davos. But on the same time, Trump and them still boarded the plane. So what I told Josh is, I suspect that they found whatever was on there, deactivated it, just like the post says, and then went along with the trip, not telling anybody that they found it or deactivated it. Because all of a sudden, if you get people at the last minute saying, "Hey, POTUS, I can't make this one. I'm going to catch a later flight," or POTUS starts to invite some people, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to pass on this one." People that normally wouldn't pass, one, it gives them an inclination of who probably was aware of this or knew about it, and two, as he's in the air, his guys, the good intelligence agencies, get to monitor all these people and see what the chatter looks like. Because if everybody's expecting a boom at a certain point and it doesn't come, they're going to pick that up. So I think this was a way of Trump and them capturing these guys, getting more evidence against them. Now, here's the interesting thing, Josh. So when Trump reboarded his plane last night to head back to Davos, he boarded a C-32A, which, okay, that makes sense, from the 89th Squadron. And my Marine Corps math, when you do 8 plus 9, you get 17. And given everything that happened last night, the timings and the stamps and all that, I found that very interesting, because they knew all eyes were on which plane is he going to take, what route's he going to take, how's he going to change this. So I just wanted to supplement what you said right there, Josh, and all that stuff.
Oh, no, that's awesome. And, if you go the day before in Davos or the day of before Trump left for Davos, you had Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada. And he went on that podium and he was saying some pretty war level type of stuff. It was shots across the bow to Donald Trump. Basically, he was saying is that America is dead to us. Us in Europe no longer care about America. They've left the rules-based international order, which is just another word for the unelected bureaucracy of the New World Order. And then he says that Canada, though, is an energy superpower. We are one of the largest nations in the Northern Hemisphere, and we are going to lead the way for any country that wants to come in and join with us. We will lead the way in our hemisphere instead of the United States of America. It almost sounded like Carney thought something was going to happen to Trump, and he was setting the stage for Canada to rise up in global leadership.
Yep. And, Alberta might have something to say about that because they're voting to basically secede from Canada. But yeah, we've talked a little bit before the show too about how Trump was definitely going to Davos one way or the other because he basically spanked everybody. And he came on and he hammered Carney in his speech. He hammered the European Union, telling them that basically, if it wasn't for America, a lot of you guys would even exist. So he's saying that to them. So he's stirring the pot. And we're gonna have to see something happen, I think, from the Europe. Now, of course, they're going to Greenland. They're trying to. We talked about this too. We saved them in World War I and World War II. We're trying to do the same thing right now. Why would they, try and resist that? And Josh, you had a good point. It's like because
They're the enemy.
pretty much. So
Yeah.
they're in bed with China, all of Europe. They just allowed the Chinese, they're going to build a super mega embassy in the heart of London. And that's going to be a massive security risk. So they basically just given over their security to China pretty much.
Yeah, here's an interesting point, and this is one of the things that I've been laying out for people as it's been unfolding, and every day I get to add something into it. At the end of December, Trump put out his national security strategy. And if people haven't read the national security strategy of the Trump administration, it basically says that we're moving to a multipolar world framework, that we're no longer interested in what's happening in Europe. They go on to say that the European economy is decreasing in GDP. It's not even at the competitory level of many of the first world nations. Their military is at nowhere near where it needs to be. They don't contribute in any way, shape, or form to us. And so they got 5 years to basically figure out NATO. Then he goes on to say that we're going to focus on our hemisphere, North America, South America, and good luck to all of you, right? So after this happens, Trump gives a $11.1 billion arms package to Taiwan. Now, this is important because kind of how Trump looked at it is they asked him, he said, what do you think about how China's going to react about this? And Trump basically just said, FAFO, fuck around and find out. Well, the next day, the day after Trump's $11.1 billion arms package to Taiwan, China put export restrictions through PLA licensing on all silver. So you're wondering why silver is skyrocketing up in price. China is the producer of 34% of the global silver. Not only that, is they process over 67% of global silver. So now China the next day puts export restrictions on silver through PLA licensing. PLA licensing is the People Liberation Army's licensing, which means that if it's for defense, if you're going to use it for missiles, satellites, bombs, you're not getting the Taiwanese Navy was actually shadowing Chinese ships.
Can you back up, Josh? Can you back up 30 seconds? Because this froze and you were writing a narrative. I don't want to miss any of it.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So 30 seconds, $11.1 billion arms package to Taiwan.
Any silver going to any defense projects, missiles, etc. China's not sending any silver.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. China. So basically, the reason for seeing skyrocketing silver prices, number one is rehypothecation due to paper silver. Secondly is because of China's export restrictions. Okay. So China then goes and forms an embargo around Taiwan. This is a military exercise, live fire. And here's the thing is China was waiting for Trump to respond. Well, do you remember hearing that the Maduro raid was delayed 4 days?
No.
Do you know why it was delayed 4 days? It was delayed 4 days because Trump was waiting for the Chinese foreign minister to land in Venezuela.
Yeah.
He met with Maduro that day. Trump swept in with Delta Force that night, took out Maduro while the Chinese foreign minister's in a hotel room.
That's the troll of all trolls right there.
Oh, it is.
In his life, that was the troll of all trolls. Waiting till the Chinese get there and then
yeah, so then Trump's like, he starts on Greenland. Hey, we're taking Greenland one way or another. Greenland's going to be ours. And obviously Europe is like, that's not going to happen. Trump's like, too bad. I don't care. Right. And one thing that I've said since the get-go of all of this Trump administration is that Trump's going to take Northern Canada at the minimum, Northern Canada and Greenland. And it's all about Space Force. It's all about what's actually happening. He put out a post the other day where he said the stake of the planet is at stake if we don't get Greenland. Now, to me, that doesn't sound like we're worried about China. Okay, that sounds like something else. And I actually know what this is. We can talk about this towards the end of the show. If you ask me about the 500-year leap, I will tell you all about why Greenland is so important.
But it's technology, right? Technology.
Technology.
Okay.
So Immediately after this, what happens? Carney goes to China and meets with Xi Jinping and says Xi Jinping and us are going to have massive trade deals, and China is coming into Canada.
Yeah.
So that is a hit to Trump because Trump wants Greenland to protect the Golden Dome, so forth. But if they have Canada, that's Greenland's now obsolete. So this was basically a moves and counter moves by the globalists in Europe, by China against Trump. So now we're waiting for Trump to counter on this move. And we had Carney just yesterday talking to basically shots across the bow to Donald Trump, talking about a new world order, coming in, talking about how basically America is dead to us, that we no longer want to trade. And actually today just came out a little while ago that the EU has canceled all trade deals with the United States of America. That's huge.
And before we get too far away from it, just so people can understand that Trump knew all these things were going to unfold this way with Canada, here's the proof of it. And I've talked about this with Josh and others, is Venezuela was a forward observation base. It was a FOB. That's what it was for the globalist elite. That's what this headquarters or COC was for the deep state in China. So Trump knew that when he removed China that had that ability to have that FOB in South America, that they were going to move to Canada. So if Trump would have just came straight out talking about just Venezuela, just securing our hemisphere, and never mention anything about Canada, never mention anything about Greenland, and then all of a sudden China starts to have these talks with Canada, and then Trump has the talks with Greenland, then it looks like, okay, Trump is going a little too far here. What they did was Trump knew that Canada and China would be forced into these talks when China lost its ability to have that military front in South America. Trump knew this. So when Trump started to have these conversations before Canada and China had the conversations about Greenland, it's an issue of national security. This is something that's extremely important to us. Then Canada and China start to have these talks. Now Trump gets to come out and says, this is what I was talking about. This is one of the reasons that we have to have Greenland, because these types of relationships are absolutely detrimental and dangerous to the United States. And it just, all these things show that this man was well aware of how everything was going to unfold.
You know what's bizarre to me about all this? And it's obviously this is a globalist push, a globalist move, and they don't care about their people. None of these leaders except Trump really cares about their citizens, their population. But the reality that Canadians, obviously, the world has been brainwashed and half of them are lobotomized. They'll actually cheerlead China coming in to save Canada because, guys know in the eastern side of Canada, all the socialist lunatics on the eastern side of Canada, they're all for it. Yeah, bring the Chinese in. It baffles me that these people can't look at reality for what it is and see what a China-dominated country would look like in their country if they can't see what goes on in China. And General Valley said this to me once. I visited him this summer, and we were talking about the Muslim Brotherhood, talking about the overthrow of the Mubarak regime in Egypt. And he was actually in a relationship at the time with General al-Sisi, who eventually overthrew the Muslim Brotherhood, is now president of Egypt. He said, and I thought this was profound. He said that al-Sisi said, with the bullshit was going on, obviously in the Obama administration, he helped. They were the architecture built to overthrow that, get the Muslim Brotherhood in there. But he said, why is it? Al-Sisi said, why is it that Americans they see everything through a political prism versus a reality prism? And I thought that's kind of a brilliant question, actually, because that's exactly what they're looking at from what we do or what our leaders do here in the U.S. makes no sense to other global leaders. Like, what the F are they thinking? And here we are, now this situation right here. How can they not be looking at this situation through a reality prism with what's on their doorstep? They honestly think that they're going to be able to make any of these moves and have an impact on where Trump's taking the country, given the fact they can't survive without us. I used to tell Europeans and Canadians for the last 3 decades that I've been running into them. When you live out, as you know, Alpha in California, it's so transient. You're meeting these people all the time. And eventually, it's always a political discussion. I would say, look, the only reason you people have the ability to be socialists, because we are funding your nation's defense. If you had to fund your own defense, your countries wouldn't exist. They'd been bankrupt generations ago. And it just baffles me they can't see this. But now they're going to, because with all the moves that Trump's making, defanging their paper tiger, NATO, and everything else, it's going to show them basically the emperor is going to be in front of the world, and everybody's going to say, "Holy shit, that emperor has no clothes on." That's what's coming to Europe.
But he's
Yeah,
also, taking down the deep state within the United States. Take a look at Minneapolis. Take a look at all the fraud that's being exposed. We're at war in Minneapolis. We're so close to bullets flying in Minneapolis. It's not even funny. So there's over 100,000 new ICE agents that are being, brought in. Many of them are combat veterans. All right, so we're going to town on these liberals. This demonic, deep state Democrat Party with a few rhinos thrown in. So watch what happens in Minneapolis, because that's the powder keg right there. Where does it go from here?
Yeah, and many active duty troops are reporting now that they've been put on notice to be deployable inside the United States of America. We're hearing this in Alaska, North Carolina, and up to 1,500 troops we're hearing about. I'm in Minnesota. I'm 40 minutes away from everything that's going on. So trust me, they don't want to come west of the city because it's going to be horrible for them. But when we start to get into the bigger perspective, you're right, Mike, that Trump is taking down the deep state, but we have to look at things in kind of a structured perspective, right? Is that the deep state is kind of like this, I look at everything in a feudalistic perspective. Is you have the oligarch, the king, the head of the snake up here, and then you have his generals that relay his orders, and then you have governors that kind of rule over the lands. And the deep state is just the rulers of this land right here. They're the ones that had a specific job, the 16-year plan, make sure the United States of America fails economically, socially, and politically. Make sure that by this time frame, 2021, that the United States of America is on fire in the midst of civil war, so we can release a pandemic, wipe out 50% of the population, and allow China to come in and swoop up all the farmland. That was their plan.
It's all written out. It's all documented. Yep.
Yeah.
I was telling Josh, I had a conversation with Michael Yan. This was probably 2.5, 3 years ago, when he was deep inside the Darien Gap. And one of the things that he told me is that historically there are three things that collapsed any civilization, and it's famine. And then after famine, it's some type of economic collapse, and it's the fall logistically that'll happen. He goes, and when all three of those things happen simultaneously, there's no country that's ever survived it. And he goes, if you look at what they're trying to do to us, I mean, it went with the ports, the infrastructure, with the train derailments, all that stuff, the first pandemic, and then, the hyperinflation to make the US dollar collapse. He goes, this is what they're setting up to happen to the United States. And then I knew that if that happens, then like Josh said, then you're going to get pandemic 2.0, and you're going to have everybody that there's just whoever's in charge is going to get blamed. Now, whether it's the NATO that comes in, the UN that comes in, whether it's a military invasion, we're at our weakest when that happens, especially when you look at what the Obama presidency and the Biden presidency did to our military with the weakening of the steel, the weakening of our ammo. And Josh, I would hope that you would cover the part as well of using all our ammo in Ukraine, to send
China's
it out
proxy
there.
war. Yeah, it was a Chinese proxy war. And so when China is a big part of this. So when we start to look at the tiers of how all this operates, you have the deep state, and then the deep state kind of operates through what I call the deep state intelligence apparatus. This is all the various different rogue agencies that operate through NGOs, through institutions, through organizations, through educational institutions. Right? When we think of the CIA, the CIA is bad. Yeah, the CIA surface level actually has probably a lot of good patriots in it, right? But when you start to get down into the depths of it, the bureaucracy and the people that are handling contracts, or the people that are running, covert agents in Venezuela or Cuba, this is where you start to get into the deep state intelligence apparatus that is going out there and it's funneling money into an NGO, or funneling money into, various different funding organizations that then go fund mercenary armies to do a color revolution, that go over here and run drugs or human trafficking operations. That is it. And here's the thing, is that is not able to be covered by Congress. Congress doesn't have oversight over that because it is outside of the organization, but it is still part of that infrastructure. So then on the upper level is you have the think tanks. You have the old British Empire dominance that still rules after World War II. This is the rules-based international order. This comes out of the Chatham House. This comes out with the Trilateral Commission, the Council of Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg Group, the World Economic Forum. This was developed by the European nations after World War II to maintain control over the Western world, to utilize themselves to put and implement policy and regulations and direct that directly into the laws in the United States and other Western nations through influence, and then get their political subverts into those political centers so they can control those countries and albeit the resources. Right? The resources was the key context because they understood that if you control the resources, you control the people. If you control the resources and the people, you control the world. And this was their whole objective of the British Empire. And they utilized the intelligence apparatuses to do this. The deep state is simply their players that were operating in the United States. So people ask me all the time, Josh, when are we going to see arrests and accountability and all this stuff? And I said, after you take the head off of the snake, you got to cut the head off of the snake first and foremost. And what is the head off of the snake? I've been saying it since, years now. It's Europe. The head of the snake is the old European aristocracy. It is the royal families, the bloodlines. It is the London bankers. This is the head of the snake. Now, people are like, well, what about China? And I said, who the hell funded China? You go back to 1962, it was billions of dollars of European financing money, Rothschild money going in. So it was Rothschild Sassoon money flowing into the Yi family money in Hong Kong that funded the Industrial Revolution in China. This is along with the Rockefellers. So we know that it was the Western elites that funded China's progression. It was Bill Clinton who produced NAFTA and GATT that moved all of our jobs over to the new industrial manufacturing base that the other Western financiers just built. So they are controlled part and part, the CCP, the PLA, part and part by the European elites. At the same time, what you have is you have Xi Jinping, which I think is looking at this going, I'm not going to give my power up to some elected bureaucracy outside of China. I'm not going to. So I think that Xi Jinping is actually working with Trump as well as Putin. But when we start to look at it from the perspective of Ukraine, if we're moving into a multipolar framework, and we know this meeting actually happened, Alpha and I have a very good contact. This meeting actually happened, 2018 in Rome. Trump sent a delegation, Putin sent a delegation, and Xi sent a delegation. They met at the Vatican. And what they discussed was world peace, a multipolar world framework, and taking down the old guard, the systematic destruction of the old guard, which is the European elites, which is the London bankers. And they said, we're going to dismantle their Western New World Order, and we're going to implement a multipolar world framework. And this is what we're seeing right now being developed over the last year. Trump has put this into place. Now, what does a multipolar world framework, and why is China still a threat? Well, China's a threat because in a multipolar world, it's basically sovereign nations progressing the world, but also in competition with each other. And so now it becomes a resource domain to acquire as much resources because we have technology that right now can change the world. And whoever controls that technology is going to rule the world for the next 100 years, is going to lead the world for the next 100 years. And so you have the silent war between China and the United States, Xi side and Trump side, by who can acquire the most resources in the shortest amount of time and then develop artificial superintelligence to become the first hyperpower of the world. So China knew this. They didn't think that, I don't know if they thought Trump was going to come back, but in 2022, when Ukraine and Russia conflict began, China was the primary instigator. They were the financier on the European side. They were the financier on the Russian side. Trump said it just a month ago. He said, if China wanted the Ukraine war to end, all they had to do was stop buying Russian oil. All they had to do is stop buying Russian oil and the war would end tomorrow because they are the ones financing it. At the same time, China is the one that's financing all of the supplementary exchanges into the European Union, into European countries. So you got to think about this. If you're looking at a proxy war conflict from tactical and strategic standpoint, Under the Biden administration, we're sending hundreds of billions of dollars of money into Ukraine. We're sending billions upon billions of dollars of weapons, of missile defense systems, of bullets, everything that you could shoot. We were sending it over there. We depleted our military to the point where we could not fight wars. Well, guess what? Russia was doing the same thing. So, the perspective on the global level, you have China, the US, and Russia, which are all superpowers. China's funding both sides of the war. They're getting rich and bigger, increasing their military might, building out their military power. Well, Russia is declining because they're using all their resources. The United States is using all the resources. In other words, they were proxy warring between Russia and the US. This is why NATO wanted to go to war with Russia so bad, because this is the instigation directly from China. If China can get Russia and the United States to fight each other, China becomes a hyperpower. There's no worry about competitory superpowers in a multipolar world framework. So this is kind of what we've had going on over the last year with Trump redeveloping trade deals, tariffs, going out there, securing resources, ending conflicts. Every single one of the conflicts that Donald Trump has ended just happened to lay in and around the equator. Isn't that interesting? Now, if you have a spaceport, you want to be as close to the equator as possible. Not only that, is if you have a Golden Dome, a space-based weapon system, all of your forward outlook posts need to be on the equator or in the northern hemisphere, in the Arctic. Everything that he's doing is based upon technological progression that is happening right now, that in the next year is going to skyrocket humanity beyond anything we could ever imagine.
You know, as a parallel to what you're doing, we keep hearing over the last 6, 7 years about the playbook. They've captured the deep state playbook. They know what all the moves they're going to make, because it's the only moves they've ever made in the history of ever taking over the planet like they have this slowly. And what's interesting about this particular playbook, as you said, you're taking two factions and pitting them against each other. China pitting Russia and the U.S. against each other, and then propagating that to happen. It's exactly what the Khazarians have done. It's how we got into the whole fight on terrorism with Bush one, and then of course Clinton. This is back in 1990 now. It's right after the time when I had the rug pulled out from underneath me with a Navy contract, flight contract. And I was waiting 6 months to take my AQTFRs again so I could bring that up 1 point. And it was a done deal that just disappeared. Like, what can I do now? It's all needs assessment. They are back. Bush one was downsizing the Reagan military buildup. Remember, he talked about we need a kindler, gentler America and all that bullshit he said in his campaign speeches. Well, he was the initiator of bringing down the defense machine that Reagan built, which made us the sole superpower. And then and that was H.W. Bush. And then Clinton comes to power, and the same thing keeps happening. And I was talking to aviators at air shows, and they were saying to me, they're actually gutting aviation. They got planes that they're now cannibalizing other F-15s. Or other F-14s and F-18s, they're cannibalizing them for parts to keep the other ones running. Said it's that bad. One guy said to me, he said, even though the wall came down, he said the greatest threat we're going to see in the world is these small third world countries. That's going to be a terrorist influence on the world. That's going to be this is back in 1990, before this thing proliferated. So it's exactly what the Rothschilds and Rockefellers have always done. It's they're in competition, right, for control. They're both working together for the same ends, but they want to be the guys that are controlling everything at the end of it all. So when you look at us being pitted against what would be considered an ally, they've done this over and over. The Khazarians doing the same thing. Get the Khazarians, which are the fake Jews, get the Muslims and the Christians fighting each other. And we got to keep them fighting each other, because if they're not fighting each other, they're going to look at us and they're going to see what we're doing. And when they realize what we've been doing on the planet, they're going to wipe us out. They literally are fearful that we'll just wipe out Israel, wipe out all the Khazarians in the world because of what they've done. So how do they do it? They distract us. They keep other factions that could actually work together fighting each other. It's the same model, same playbook. You go back in history, it's always the same thing. So that's a great pickup on that. I don't know how they're doing that. Mike, you were getting ready to say something.
Yeah, Russia was gone, Soviet Union was gone, so they needed another enemy to keep the military industrial complex going, and that was the terrorism in the Middle East, which was a nothing burger. I mean, several of us have fought over there, and we're like, what the F is going on? We should have like crushed this in 6 months. Why is this going on year after year, decade after decade? It was complete bullshit. And Clinton, we talk about Bush Senior, and then Clinton came in. He gave away military and nuclear secrets to China.
China sold
So
them.
they're basically built. They were building up China for the threat that they supposedly are now. Now we just saw President Trump, send in Delta Force and so forth, and that was a show. It's like we're not playing around anymore. We have the technology. We'll come in and we'll knock your shit off right now, and there's nothing you can do about it. And so he says the only thing that's keeping me from basically, taking over the world right now is my morals. So, and that's true. So we're not playing these games anymore. We're going to go in and go, oh, like we have to keep this going for year after year after year. We have the technology, we have the experience, we have, the Patriots that are like, super turned on and ready to rock and roll against foreign and especially right now domestic, infiltration. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to like knock the, like Trump says, we're going to knock the hell out of them. So it's coming. It's beautiful.
So this is interesting because I reported on this the other day. Go ahead, Alpha. I'm sorry. I was going to talk about the weapons.
I just didn't want you to lose your thought because I can hold mine.
No, go ahead.
I spent a lot of time on social media. Josh.
We know that. We see you everywhere.
And well, that's the public side. I spend a lot of time covertly on social media as well because there's certain places I don't want people to know that I'm listening and observing.
Yeah,
Jerome.
And Jerome. And about two years ago, I started to pick up on something, and I started to build this file. And I noticed, and it became more pronounced as we got closer and closer to this new administration, that if people went in and they talked about the Muslim Brotherhood, the conversations, it turned, that they got heated. If people started talking about the Jews, conversation would get heated. And then you could see that these conversations were even amplified because it created a lot of this chaos in this virtual world. But I noticed this: if people would come in and start to say something about China, immediately I would see new accounts that would populate in and be like, well, no. And most of them had some type of tie to the education or partner education where they're Americans or they're Mexicans or South Americans teaching in China. And so their English was pretty good. And they'd come in, they're like, well, no, China's not about that. There is no surveillance state. And I would be listening. I'm like, these people are pushing up. This is absolute bullshit. And so I started to monitor these. I started to track these accounts and create my file on them. And then I started to notice that their window when they were most active for me was usually around 6 p.m. to about midnight Pacific time. And I started to notice it was these same accounts. It was a formal team of people that were doing this. So I brought it to the attention of some people and I said, they are not wanting people to see China through a negative limelight. They're not. They are trying to keep social media to where people will be like, well, no, every time people bring up China, I always hear these people that provide this other information. No, it's strictly the Muslims and strictly the Jews. Like this is where all of our attention needs to be focused solely here. Then, and I share, Josh knows I share this now because General Flynn made it public already, so now I don't mind. But back quite some time ago, Boone Cutler, rest his soul, he had shared with me a portion of the new book that him and General Flynn were working on. And I remember after I saw this portion, I said, damn, I said, we're going to have some type of kinetic activity that's going to happen between us and China. Every time, every book that they've came out with, the last 3 books, AI, Fifth Generation Warfare, The Role of the Church, in the year to year and a half, following that, all these things have been on the table. And so I knew that based off of the part that I disclosed, that there's going to be something that happens with China. How big that is, I don't know, but it's definitely going to be kinetic. There's no way I walked away from seeing what I saw and not realize there's going to be something kinetic. So then I said, okay, well, what's the time frame look like? And so every time the General and Boone had released a book, you started to see the onset of that stuff within 6 months up to a year. And so now where we're at is General Flynn, about a month and a half ago, he's disclosed that this book's coming out its focus is on China. But the book hasn't come out yet. So we know that he has to release that book. Once he releases that book, it's got to get out into the truth community. All of us will start talking about it. People will start buying it. And that gives us that 6-month window of, or up to a year of where we're all grasp what's going on. So I tell people to mark when that book comes out, anywhere from 6 months to a year, you're going to see that kinetic, whatever that situation is, you're going to see that kinetic situation between us and China. Now, that being said, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen in China. Because, and that's why I was happy that Josh talked about what's going on with Canada and China. And over the last few years, we've seen people that have provided videos. We've seen citizen journalists talking about, the southwest portion, when you get into Vancouver and all that, of, Chinese personnel, they haven't seen military uniforms. They've seen military flights, but the people that come off look like civilians. So are these Chinese civilians just working, on, oil and things that are out there? Or is this deployment of Chinese troops? We know that Chinese troops came in through our southern border. And we know that the Chinese have a large presence in Mexico, which takes us back to when Trump first started to bomb the narco boats. Based off some information we came out and said, following what happens in Venezuela, you're going to see Trump do military strikes in Mexico. I think we said it on it was on your show too, Jaco, that we had brought that up. And what do you have about a week and a half ago? Trump said, we're looking at doing land strikes, military strikes within Mexico. And he's doing it because we're going after the cartels, but who controls the cartels? It's the CCP. And so will this conflict take place in China? It could be. Or could this conflict against China take place in these areas where China's doing
that makes sense.
war
that
through
makes
proxies?
Total sense, right? What's the point of having strikes or any type of kinetic warfare in China? What's the objective? The goal? It's not land. It's nothing, right? It has to be in this hemisphere.
So,
because the one last thing I'll share too, I promise I'll give it to you right here, Josh.
No, you're good, man.
And like I said, it's just, if it was my book, I would have said this is what's in it, but it's their book, and that's why I leave it up to them to disclose what's in there. But I will say this: some of the stuff that I read would not just be orchestrated by U.S. military. So
keep going.
How to counter influence operations?
Okay, psychological psyops. Yeah,
Ghost in the machine. That's what we're talking about here. So, Trump came. So this is interesting. You guys all heard the rumors with Delta Force that they had some weapon on them, that all of the Cuban security guards began vomiting. They couldn't pull the triggers. Their eyes went blurry. Their blood was coming from their noses. That's a pretty powerful weapon. And those stories got back to that Chinese foreign minister. Trump also said something yesterday at Davos. I'm going to share this real quick, and it's just a quick clip, but listen to what Trump says, because this is a warning to Europe and to China.
So now our country and the world face much greater risks than it did ever before because of missiles, because of nuclear, because of weapons of warfare that I can't even talk about. 2 weeks ago, they saw weapons that nobody ever heard of. They weren't able to fire a shot at us. They said, what happened? Everything was discombobulated. They said, we've got them in our sights. Press the trigger, and nothing happened. No anti-aircraft missiles went up. There was one that went up about 30 feet and crashed down right next to the people that sent it. They said, what the hell is going on? Those defensive systems were made by Russia and by China. So they're going to go back to the drawing boards, I guess.
Oh, man, he cracks me up.
It's significant. I mean, it's a power play. So if you go back to January 1st, 2025, an event happened. This was the Green Beret Matthew Leifelsberger. So I've written about this on my Substack in the context of what Matthew Leifelsberger was saying. He's a Green Beret. basically his story that he sent out to the Sean Ryan podcast and all these other podcasts was he comes home from leave from Germany for Christmas. He's hanging out and someone tries to kill him. They try to kidnap him and they try to kill him. And he's like, what the hell's going on? Well, he's a Green Beret. So what does he do? Goes and gets firearms, gets in explosives, gets in a cyber truck, thinking about taking off to Mexico, not because they were trying to kill him, because he knew what he was working on was very high profile, and he thought the government was actually trying to kill him, which I think that that's actually what was happening. What happens is he ends up turning in, he goes to Las Vegas. Now, why did he go to Trump Tower? He set the Cybertruck right out in front of Trump Tower and he blew himself up. Well, that doesn't make sense. His plan was to put the Cybertruck in front of Trump Tower, wait for the whole area to clear, remote detonate it, and then turn himself into authorities because he's going to make mainstream news. Once that happens, the government can't take him out and kill him, and now he can tell his story and get some overview of why they're trying to kill him. But what happened is they remote detonated by hacking his phone when he was right there in front of Trump's tower, and they killed him. Well, what did he say in his manifesto that came out days before? He says, I don't know why, but it's either because of this mission that we ran in 2019 where innocent civilians died, or it's because of the work I'm doing right now. I'm in Germany. I'm working on an anti-gravitic drone program. China has anti-gravitic drones. We have anti-gravitic drones. He goes, the New Jersey drones, that's China. Right now, at the end of December, those are now ours, countering China's. He goes, but here's the thing, is that we don't have any defensive systems against this. They're simply offensive. He goes, this is mutually assured destruction if these technologies are put into play because nobody can stop them. So this is the type of technology that we have and China has. And China only has it because of Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and stolen SAP programs that Hillary Clinton sold to China. Now, what does that mean? It means that we have technologies and weapons that are far beyond anything we could ever imagine. And if that war that Alpha is talking about actually happens, I believe the domain it's going to be fought in is space. And it's going to be atmospheric. It's going to be above the planet. It's going to be satellite warfare, killer rogue satellites taking out each other, communications darkness. It's going to target energy. It's going to target resources. Third world countries that are controlled by us. It's going to be unrestricted warfare at its finest. And it's already underway, but it's more the social economic side of it and the political side that we're watching right now, not as much as the kinetic side that we're about to see over the next year.
Yeah, it's also about resources, like you're mentioning. So resources, we're going after the resources because that's what we need to defeat China and whoever else is going to play, against us. So in Greenland, there's so many different levels that we could go into Greenland. Talk about energy. They can broadcast energy, and that's one of the Tesla technologies I think is going to come, in the big play in Greenland. No one's talking about that yet. We just heard it here, but you're going to see a lot of that happen. We need the silver, we need the oil, we need you name it. A lot of the countries that we're going to go into have that. Now, South Africa is another country that has a lot of this, and we're probably going to go over there, and Trump's already been talking about South Africa, probably going to go over there, and that's another bridgehead to going in and helping Africa, shake off its Chinese influence, which is really controlling Africa in a major negative way, funding the terrorism that's going on against Christians. All of this stuff is going to be exposed and taken down, across the world.
100%. And you're talking about the transmission of wireless energy. Lieutenant General Quas was actually talking about this, how on the X-37B, they've already ran experiments where they beamed energy directly from space outside of Earth's perimeter to rectennas on the planet and converted it directly into electrical energy. You can build those rectennas, throw them in your phones, and they'll automatically drip charge throughout the day. You're right. I believe they want to build a massive rectenna in Greenland to actually take the transference of that energy through a geostationary solar panel array that beams it down into Greenland and then distributes that across the planet, the North America, the fuel data centers. And that's the other part of this. So the Trump administration, about a month ago, they created something known as the Genesis mission. No one was really talking about this. And I said, why aren't people talking about this? So the Genesis mission is 30,000 experts, U.S. scientists, not foreign, U.S. scientists that are being brought in by the United States government and given access to the most powerful artificial intelligence on the planet. Okay? And what they're doing is they're taking all of the research papers from all the national laboratories, all the medical research, all the physics research, and they're throwing it into this AI. And they're taking those experts out there and they're saying, solve math, solve physics, solve science, develop technologies, innovate. We have to understand, we had 500 years during the Dark Ages that suppressed our technological development. We've always talked about this. We would be a Star Wars civilization if it wasn't for the Dark Ages. We're about to make that leap in probably less than 20 years. Probably less than 20 years. We're about to advance technologically 500 years. So when we start to talk about who's going to lead the world.
To that point, just to share an anecdotal story to support what Josh is saying, this was early to mid 2024. I had a conversation with a person that told me, he goes, listen, Alpha, if I was to show up in your driveway in a hover spaceship and have you come out and beam me up into the ship, he goes, you would find that more believable than what's actually coming with technology.
Yeah.
Jaco knows.
This
I was like, what?
I'm listening to you guys describe this, and again, it fits in with their strategy. Trump's making this about resources, and he has the other players moving on that battlefield toward the capture of resources. It's diversionary, because what you're describing is over here's the real battle. It's technology. So you guys have these guys expending time and brain power and potential military resources trying to gobble up or at least fortify their access to raw material or whatever, when truly back in the background, what the Trump administration is doing exactly what you're talking about. They're keeping them focused on something else while they build out a technological machine that could neuter all offensive actions by these rogue countries. That's what it appears to be.
And how do you limit exposure for 80 years of lies? How do you ensure that your 80 years of lies, deception, treason, sedition, the death of American citizens, the testing on American citizens, how do you ensure that that does not come out? Well, what you do is you slow drip technological evolution over a 20-year period, and you start to release what you've developed, what you figured out, and you make it new. And how do you make it new? You say that AI figured it out.
Well, it's
you
like
pump
Space
it into
Force,
artificial.
Same thing with Space Force. When Trump first announced creating Space Force, as soon as he said that, I said, "There, it's on. Disclosure's coming." Because all these incredible technologies that they're capturing, that the Alliance powers off planet are capturing, they're going to use for humanity's ascension purposes and progress. They are taking all those assets that they've acquired from either Solar Warden or the Dark Fleet or whichever MIC, and they're putting them under one umbrella, and we're going to call it Space Force. And that way, when these technologies come out, people aren't saying, wait a minute, so how long have they had this? How come we haven't had it? This is bullshit, as opposed to check this out what Space Force just invented in 12 minutes,
with AI,
like exactly,
with artificial superintelligence.
Exactly.
And then they say, well, how are we going to mass produce it? Oh, we have all the resources. Oh, well, now we need a new infrastructure. Well, we have all the resources. We have all the energy. And energy is an interesting one. I mean, obviously, Trump's company, they just bought that fusion company. I got some inside information on this. Actually, information I can tell you guys in private. I can't tell you publicly. But there is something major coming with fusion technology. And I'm not talking about Tomax and these types of things, hot fusion. We're talking about real fusion technology that is right around the corner. And there's plays right now being made by the Trump administration to get this out there. That's one of the reasons why True Social invested in that company. But we are about to basically exponentiate in technological development beyond anything we could ever imagine. There was a longevity guy, Dr. David Sinclair. Everybody's probably heard of Dr. David Sinclair. He was saying with AI, he goes, our research has been hyperbolic since AI has came about. And he goes, right now, if you are in your 60s, in your 70s, and you're going to be alive in 10 years, you will most likely double your lifespan. And he goes, if you're going to double your lifespan and you're alive in the next 20 years after that, you'll double your lifespan again.
Jeez.
Yep.
This is where technology is going. And I know that people are like, well, I'm not injecting anything into me and everything like that. Yeah, get to about 89 years old and decrepit and can't walk anymore, and then ask yourself
what's
that
the difference?
question.
Yeah, hit me with anything. Life or death, hit me.
Well, Trump just came out with, and he talked about it at Davos as well, TrumpRx.gov, which is going to have the lowest prescription prices of drugs. So that's going to massively help. So basically taking down the big farm, but still there's problems. And we talked about how, they've one of the ways they come after us, one of the three ways, is through some kind of, COVID-19 type scenario. Now, the COVID-19 injection was the real thing. That's what they wanted to do. So I just did a show last night where I talked about how, people that are in, funeral homes and so forth, they're seeing a 30% increase in deaths from people that have the white fibrous clot shot stuff in him, 30% increase. And that's from the injection back in 2021 when it first started, the mRNA, whatever, injections. So it's increasing the death count. They're totally covering this up. But we have a real major problem that's ongoing and increasing as a problem with those clot shots that are really taking down humanity on a massive level. Even children usually go to crematoriums. They don't go to, they don't get, embalmed or anything like that often, but sometimes. But they're saying even in the crematoriums, the numbers of infants coming in there is like at an unbelievable level. So it's happening, but it's being completely covered up by this, deep state news organization. Yep. So you hear it from us. We've been talking about this for years, but it's becoming more and more of a problem. And this is something I think that's President Trump's going to address as well.
I think one of the things that we potentially could learn is why Operation Warp Speed, A, had that title, and 2, why it was deployed when it was deployed, and why Trump hasn't kind of given people the response that they want right now. Is you got to remember, she was never supposed to lose, right? It was going to be 8 years of Obama, followed by 8 years of Hillary Clinton, which means we would have just finished her last 8 years in this 2024, or into this 2025 would have been the new president. When you look at how they deployed the bioweapon jab, you can tell they weren't prepared. I think Trump forced them to deploy that early, and that's why, even though we saw catastrophic loss, we didn't see it to the numbers that a lot of people thought they were going to see. Because what did we learn? That they were deploying these clinics in the parking lots of Walmarts and Targets and Walgreens out in the heat. And then we learned that these things have to be kept in a really cold environment, or they start to, become rendered useless, or that they don't have all that. And why? Because they weren't logistically prepared to deploy it at mass the way they were. So I think when they deployed it early, I think he affected how effective the bioweapons themselves were supposed to be. Because the way I think they had the plan, when you look at that graphic, I wish I had it on me, where it shows the Obama administration, then it shows Hillary, and it shows all the boxes, and it talks about we're going to lose the Second Amendment. This, remember, go back to that conversation we're talking about, with Michael Yon. There was supposed to be a famine. There's supposed to be a logistical crisis. Remember, you guys remember the toilet paper run? Mm-hmm. Well, the dry run on the logistics crisis that was going to come. All of a sudden, eggs farms are being destroyed. All these different train infrastructures, train infrastructures are starting to collapse. We get the train with the massive chemicals that happened in Palestine. I think it was Ohio,
East Palestine, Ohio, yeah,
Ohio. That took place. All these things were supposed to be leading up to our economic. We were going to be in an economic collapse. We were going to be in famine, and then on top of then there was going to be what was supposed to be the deployment of COVID, to where everybody was going to be begging to get these jabs because of everything that we're going through. And that's how we were going to see that mass casualty event. And I think when he put it at the front end, it completely rug pulled their timeline. Now, that said, all their things in their timeline still had to keep unfolding the way they did. And we saw this, bringing it into the present with the deployment of the illegals in LA. We see the stuff that's going here. And people are saying, why aren't these things happening the way the deep state wants? And I think it's because, again, Trump has always been ahead of them, and he's always had the pieces where he needs so that they can't get that mass effect that they want.
Yeah, they're weakening power.
Spanish flu. President Trump always was, look at the Spanish flu, blah, blah, blah. Spanish flu was caused by, military getting injections before they went over for World War I.
Yep, Rockefeller Institute or Foundation are the ones that were pushing all that out. And the point I was going to make here, based on what you just said, Alpha, is that we knew this was going to be a very successful operation against humanity. Why? Because humanity was going to be weakened, and you saw this in the drops. Sum of all fears. This, the selling, the acquisition and selling of uranium to our sworn enemy, Putin, right? CIA skims off the top a bunch of this uranium and flies 3 planes, North Korea, Syria, and Iran, where they're building a nuclear weapon. They were going to get it inside the U.S. while Hillary's president, detonate one, say, hey, this signature of the uranium is from the Russian stockpile. We sold them. Let's go hit them. Boom, they hit them. And that creates a $1 to $2 billion person elimination of a thermonuclear event kicking off in the U.S. And then COVID was supposed to come. That was when we were at our weakest because a billion or two people now dead on the planet from this thing. And then it basically finishes the game. Trump's election, or whatever you want to call that, overcoming their voter fraud, the military overcome the voter fraud. So Trump gets in power, threw sand in the gears of that plan, which would have been a guaranteed wipeout of the planet and a complete takeover. So that's why they have had everything blow up on them, because they were forced to rush this by about 7, 8 to 10 years, and they weren't prepared for that. So they were throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, and basically doing it in front of the whole planet, because now they had to. They had to operate out in the open to do something. That was their Hail Mary that didn't work. Now everything that they're doing right now is still the Hail Mary, because their plan has been in place, this plan, for a very long time, and the Trump administration military totally fucked the whole thing up for them just by the election. That's why when we all saw Bill and Hillary, the witch, they're standing there at the inauguration in 2017, and they're ready to go out and get their seats in a ceremony, and all of them look like they saw, it's like they were walking down the steps to have a noose put around their neck, and they're going to be hung right now in front of the world. That's the look on their face. It was incredible to see that camera shot or video shot of Hillary and Bill stand there, mortified looks on their face, like, we are dead. We are dead in front of the world.
An important part to talk about with Operation Warp Speed and COVID is number one, 2014, Peter Daszak, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. This is where COVID actually originated from. From there, Fauci did a $2 million grant to the Wuhan Institute of Virology after gain-of-function research was executive ordered canceled by Obama. It went to China's Wuhan Institute of Virology, but also at the same time, this is when the Defense Intelligence Agency, through Black & Veatch, a contractor, and Metabiota, opened up another research facility in one of the biolabs in Ukraine on COVID-19. Now, this is really interesting because, we have the documents from 2019, August of 2018, of the DOD, the Pentagon, asking one of the biolabs for all the information they have on COVID-19. It wasn't even named until 2020, but we have a document from 2018 that actually names it. Now, this becomes interesting because if you actually think about Operation Warp Speed, if you remember 2018, 2019, those 2 years, there's a mystery illness going around the United States of America. It had the same exact symptoms as the flu, same exact symptoms as COVID. You go to the doctor, you get tested. They say, I don't know what's wrong with you. It's not the flu. And they'd give you a Z-Pack and you'd be on your way. Operation Warp Speed was the Trump administration going in there prior, the military, reverse engineering the COVID-19 that they were going to weaponize, dumbing it down, making it almost the common cold or the common flu, releasing it into controlled populations throughout the United States in 2017, 2018, 2019. That way, when the bioweapon was actually released, actual COVID, it didn't have the effect that they thought it would. It didn't kill the entire population. And then what they did is the parts of the COVID vaccine, from what I gather, the non-mRNA vaccines were actually utilized from that genetic strand to produce the non-mRNA vaccines, which offered a certain level of protection. Now, I don't know about that necessarily. We do know there was two non-mRNAs and one mRNA that came out of Operation Warp Speed, but they were all taken offline after Joe Biden came into the presidency in January of 2021.
Interesting.
Remember, they attacked Johnson and Johnson in October, saying, "Oh, Johnson and Johnson's non-mRNA vaccine is causing strokes. It's causing strokes." No, it wasn't. It was all the mRNA vaccines that were causing the strokes, and they removed most of the Operation Warp Speed vaccines from the whole circulation. But when Trump says, "I saved hundreds of millions of lives," that's what he's talking about. He's talking about how they did an operation years before that slowly released this bioweapon in a dumbed down form to the masses to get herd immunity. That way, when it's actually released, nobody dies.
Yep. Everybody hanging out together in the sun solves the problem. Keep them inside. Don't let them talk to each other. Watch them drop. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. Well, so then now you think about it, is if their objective was then to come out with a vaccine afterwards and take care of everybody else, the one thing that they didn't expect with the vaccine is for herd immunity to be developed from a weaker strain of the same virus. So when you have that into your immunity, maybe we don't know how it's going to interact, but I think that Donald Trump absolutely saved hundreds of millions of lives with the rollout. Exactly what Alpha said, rolling it out too early, changing the genetic profile, changing the immune system within the human being, having prophylactics that go out there that protected us from ivermectin, quercetin, everything. We owe that man a debt of gratitude.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
I remember Tulsi Gabbard basically exposed the bioweapons in Ukraine, and we had Mitt Romney wanted her to be executed for treason. And so, now look at Tulsi Gabbard now in charge of, all of the spy agencies. So that's how these things are progressing very quickly. And she was once a Democrat from Hawaii. She was low on totem pole. They came after her. They tried to destroy her. And she just started to reveal, you guys want to destroy me? I'm going to show you. So this is where we're at now. A lot of people have jumped ship from the Democrat Party. But still, we have a lot of them. We have, Mitt Romney, not Mitt Romney, but Gavin Newsom was also destroyed at Davos. So he was like just eviscerated, by the who's the head of the Treasury.
Scott Bessent.
Scott Bessent.
Yep. Yeah. So he basically go look up Scott Bessent, takes down Gavin Newsom. Oh my God, he eviscerated him. So it is, we're exposing all this stuff. They're exposing all this stuff, and we're helping them out. We're helping them out. We're like, like you're talking about, Alpha. Something gets revealed, and then we jump on it. We expose it bigger, and then eventually it goes up to higher levels. So this is where we're at right now. But at some point, it goes kinetic, and the kinetic here in the United States, we've all talked about this for years. Alpha, you got in trouble for it in the past, kind of like hinting around about this is coming. So they want to shut us up for this, but it's too late. So now we have, I know, Scott, you have been on the forefront of, having people, get ready for this, where you need militia, it's been, basically, you go to, you get involved in your local civics and so forth, but at some point it goes tactical. And people in surrounding areas, especially right now in Minneapolis, you're talking, Josh, if they get out of line, they're going to be hurt and bad. So I think we're going to see militia, patriots and so forth are going to be pushing back on this, pushing them into, kill zones. And that's going to be the big cities, the big blue cities.
You
Yeah.
talk about kinetic happening, and I'll say this to the audience. Look, when kinetic starts to happen, there's a lot less to be fearful of. Number one, because it is the end game. It is the last and final move that they have. It's like you just described Trump's 5D chess strategy here, Josh, just a minute ago. I mean, seeing this coming, deploying something a couple years before under the cover of secrecy, and having it neutralized to a degree, or even neuter this attack on humanity with a bioweapon. And again, Trump plays it every day. What does the left always say about Republicans? Well, they don't like gays, they don't like women, they hate Democrats. Who's Trump surrounding himself with in his cabinet? Gays, women, Democrats. How now can you fight that battle of that narrative? Like, oh, well, that's bullshit. Look at his cabinet. So that is a depiction of his 5D chess warfare strategy, or the military's and Trump's, whatever. But that's exactly what continues to happen. You know what? Can you imagine, like today after Davos and all the things that have happened in the last 2 months, how effing pissed off these guys are sitting at their conference tables, blood dripping off their fangs. They're getting defanged every single day, and there's nothing they can do about it. And that's, again, you guys know this better than anybody. When you get in an enraged or a panic situation in any type of combat, you're fucked, because you can't think clearly, you can't think methodically, and that's what's happened to these guys. So every move they make is a stupid move. They rush some other clown out there to try to change the narrative, whether it's a Stephen Colbert or whoever, Robert De Niro, and they're putting out their worst characters to try to continue their game plan, which is obviously failing because it's been completely revealed.
Speaking of Governor Newsom, because I'm under his tyranny out here in Cali, he's probably the one that is monitoring Minnesota more than anybody, because he's trying to figure out what the playbook that's going to be used against him is. And to that point, a few days ago, Secretary of War Hegseth had them pick 25 judge advocate generals to be sent over to Minnesota to act as assistant special attorneys over there in Minneapolis. And so again, military is the only way, and that's another thing, another move by Trump's administration and the Department of War that kind of suggests, okay, here we go.
Well, Tulsi Gabbard, Jason Redding Quiones. So if you don't know, the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, she was a colonel, lieutenant colonel in the United States Army Reserves. Now, when you become a cabinet member, you're supposed to resign your commission. She never did. She is the only cabinet member in history to never resign their commission. And we got from really good sourcing that there's a reason why that is. On the other side, you have a U.S. attorney in the Southern District of Florida, the same one that you just heard, where the grand jury is impaneled for 2020 election theft and for FISA-gate, the deep state. His name is Jason Redding Quiones, who just happens to be a major in the U.S. Army Reserve. And guess what? He's supposed to resign his commission. He didn't. We got military officers being strategically placed in the Trump administration around the country. Military is the only way.
Yeah.
Well, and to that point, just to add some sauce to it, Josh, is some of the military that answers to these people are high ranks, 3-star generals, 2-star generals, and in the chain of command, you can't do that. But these, like Josh said, but this person was a colonel. This person was housed. So the education that we received is, in a time of war, you could do classified promotions
through National Security Working Groups. So National Security Council working groups can formulate various different kind of groups, and these groups can have promotional tiers, like a 4-star general or a commanding army commander of the army, a 5-star general. And let's just say that we got good confirmation that some people are on a National Security Council working group that's highly classified in a SAP program.
Now
and
with
it's all
that,
unfolding right now.
But again, it could only happen if we were in a war. And people say, well, we're not in a war. I want to remind everybody, what did Speaker Mike Johnson say? I'm a wartime speaker, but there was no active wars going on. And he said, I'm literally, when he went back, said, I'm literally a wartime speaker. You've had Trump saying I'm a wartime president, but he hasn't started any wars. Again, these are those very subtle things that if people were paying attention to, they're telling us. They're making it legally sound when they go and they say it publicly like that.
And yep. Yeah, and that just goes to show you they truly are doing everything by the book, using the other side's weapons, i.e., their legal system of human enslavement, using it against them. So it makes the outcome and the validity of all of this, when it all comes down, to be 100% bulletproof. So in 50, 100 years from now, you can't have another faction saying, hey, they overthrew this country, they stole it, they broke these laws to do it, they were illegal, we have a right to come back and take it all over again. They don't, because everything, and that's what makes it so slow. Everything has to be done by the book, and it's their book. And it reminds me of this one show on Yellowstone. Everybody loves Yellowstone. Everybody loves rip, crack, and skulls and shit like that, and telling it like it is. And one time, John Dutton says to his son Casey, he's in a context of a conversation, he says, "Well, he says, cowards run the world, son, and cowards make all the rules." And that's what we live under. Cowards are running the world. They make all the rules to enslave us. They're always outside of them, but their own rules to enslave us is used to enslave the power structure, because they can never refute what's been done by they play their game. They made up all the rules. And that's obviously, like you just made a certain point here, of they're making these announcements out in front of the public. Why? For judicial appearance. Right? It has to be bulletproof. Even if it goes into U.S. courtroom, it has to be bulletproof. Even if the judge is deep state and going to rule against, the alliance side, it's still done by the book. They can't draw any parallels. It was illegitimate and illegal, because the Democrats on the left and the globalists will always say this was illegitimate, it was illegal, blah, blah, blah. And they can make that case in any court on the planet, including the World Court.
Yep.
Yep, and they've the wokesters and the Democrats and so forth have been trying to the globalists have been trying to say that merit-based doesn't work. It's like that's old school, but as we all know, that's where we're headed, and that's what Trump is pushing. I remember being in Iraq, and I had a Army colonel, Dominican Republic colonel, and a Spanish colonel asking me, because my background, how to basically, fight against the insurgents that were hitting our compounds and so forth. And, that's what we're going to see, I think, going forward. Just like we were talking about with Tulsi Gabbard, she's like in charge of all the generals and admirals right now and telling them what to do. So that's a merit base, and she proved herself, and she moved up, and that's where, all of us come into play too. All the information that we're revealing. There's a lot of people that watch our stuff, and we're informing people on a great level. So this is amazing. And Josh, you were going to tell us about what the 500.
Yeah, the Golden Dome and the 500-year leap.
Yeah.
So Trump actually posted the other day about Greenland, and he said some very interesting things. He goes, "World peace is at stake." Then he goes on and says that the national security of the United States and the world at large is at stake. And then he increases it one more. He says, "This is the very dangerous situation for the safety, security, and survival of our planet." That doesn't sound like he's talking about China as a threat. In other words, he comes out and says it's a Golden Dome. And I actually wrote about this on my Substack about this is about the Golden Dome. This is all about the Golden Dome. So the Golden Dome is not a look down to the planet. It's in the space looking out. It's a early detection system for something that could potentially come and get us. Now, why would Trump preemptively put something up like that? Well, resources is about building the infrastructure. Energy is about developing out artificial superintelligence. Once we have artificial superintelligence, any technology we can begin to think of becomes at our reach almost instantaneously. If you all remember Star Trek, in Star Trek, you have something known as the Prime Directive. You never interfere with a developing civilization if they have not obtained a certain level of technology. It is only when they obtain, in Star Trek, faster than light travel, do you initiate first contact. Now, if we understand that, then maybe it's not just faster than light travel. What other technologies could actually provide a point of first contact? Well, what about artificial superintelligence? The reason being is ASI could take over humanity, kill us off, get into space, and take over the entire galaxy. And they would be screwed. So they have to identify these types of technologies and make first contact in and around those time frames. So what we're about to have in 20-year period, a 500-year leap, we're about to have amazing technologies, but also, from what I gather, 2027, 2028, first contact. And this is what the Golden Dome is all about. It's about those dark forest theory. If one of those people that comes over here, first contact, and let's just say that their first contact is to blow the shit out of us. Now you can understand what Trump's idea is.
And not even blow us up in the terms of missiles, because we
conquer us before we get to a point.
Yeah, we always think in terms of the weaponry that we're familiar with, but what is something that happens routinely to our planet that is very dangerous if it was to happen in a large capacity? Radiation.
The moon. That book's about the moon. I read that one.
If
5,000-year leap.
If you had one of these dark forces that was to create some type of mega solar storm that, you know, put too much radiation into our world, you could destroy humanity with radiation.
That's right. So they're building a whole interplanetary grid system for early detection. And from what I gather is it's also an advanced weapon system. From what I got from people I know in projects, SAP programs, USAP programs.
By the way, folks, when Josh talks about SAP programs, that means special access projects or programs. They off the books, higher than presidential authority to even know what they are. They can't even get close to them. Just so most people don't know what that means, but that's what it is. It's these high-level programs that are off the books, black budgets, funded with unlimited amounts of dark money, and not even the president can get to them.
Yep. And I've been fortunate enough in my life to know someone who's involved in this, and they want to be a whistleblower, but it's just not right yet. And I validated this by going on various different shows, saying some stuff before it came out. Me and my buddy broke the David Grush stuff before David Grush even came out and the article was even out, right? We knew about all this happening. So this person was telling me that, yes, we've reverse engineered, we have alien recreation vehicle, we've done this, but we still don't understand it. We can't replicate it at a commercial scale. We don't have the infrastructure or the energy sources in society to do it all. So we can go out there and we can create anti-gravitic drones, but at a large scale, we don't have the infrastructure to substantiate that. And what I mean by that is when you start to take anti-gravitic technology and you want to go from star system to star system, that requires more than just a Pentium 10 computer. That requires more than a supercomputer, more than we can house on a spacecraft. That requires artificial superintelligence, quantum computing, and an integration of something that technology hasn't even been built out for yet. And this is what they realized with all these crashes, or the craft that were actually left. We had over 15 different craft that were just left. They don't know why. They were just left, and we went and got them. And what we discovered about them, there's an integratory component to all of these craft that is the piece that makes it all work. And they said that we haven't developed this level of technology yet, but once we get ASI and once we get quantum computing, then that piece comes in it. And he goes, this is how they're able to travel from star system to star system. And that integration point, consciousness.
I was going to say that's interesting you said that, because the first thing I thought was you may be talking about the consciousness, like a sentient consciousness in a super technology. And that's how some of these craft, as you know, they're biologically active craft where there's no controls. You just, your brain, your conscious is connected to it. So when you're flying, and it has to be that way, because when you're traveling at that speed and you're on a collision course with something out there, by the time you think you react, too late. It's over. So it has to be like we have at the speed of light. How about at the speed of consciousness?
Yep.
and that's the zero time evolution between the thought and the craft moving is the only thing that would allow that technology to actually, or at least allow these type of mission sets or whatever to be carried out in these capacities, which would be, light travel or whatever. It have to be something that is instantaneous.
And if you even just think about it from the component of, let's just say that you have an anti-gravitic craft that's bending and warping. I don't necessarily think it's bending and warping space, but let's just say it's bending and warping space. That craft has to exist within a gravitational bubble. That gravitational bubble has to the kind of wrap around an object, and it has to continuously change its field structure instantaneously within hundreds of millions of a second, and especially when it does 90-degree turns or something like that. In order to do that, the calculations that have to come about for something like that to happen are beyond our capacity. And so this is one of the reasons why we have some technology that can do these things, but it's not out in the world. That it's not going to be released out into the world until we build that infrastructure that can actually do this. And ASI, artificial superintelligence, was one of the biggest keys. And they know that our ASI will lead to quantum computing, and ASI will lead to the conscious integration.
I think the Golden Dome also is going to stop the chemtrailing. It's going to stop the the HARP use to basically start earthquake activity that they produce, and then the directed energy weapon use that they use. I think the Golden Dome will also stop that. But of course, we do have that extraterrestrial threat, the negative side, which basically connected with the Nazi regime and went to Antarctica. So there's a lot more. There's a lot deeper stuff that we could go into in all this. But well, and maybe we should do a show on all that. I have done shows on that, so it's fun to go in those realms of understanding and knowing. So it basically informs people that there's a lot more going on than, just a COVID-19 shot. And the Davos based Trump going there and telling them, hey, you guys are done. I'm taking over. And there's nothing you can do about it. And so those are great reveals. But like you're talking about, the Golden Dome is probably going to be looking out at, some negative types.
That's right.
Cause us harm. Yeah.
What do you guys think? Let's talk about what this translates into in 2026. Massive changes, silvers, from what we see, obviously it's crushing it, but it's just getting underway, according to the USDebtClock.org, putting out these graphics where silver $2.66 $2.66 in 1913, bringing their Federal Reserve its value now in US dollars is true value is $1,108. Is silver going to climb like that? It's shifting the planet. Trump's talking about at the 250-year mark, it's the greatest time ever. Golden age is coming in. All these things are on deck on the backside of it. So, and we expect probably something really big, celebratory or otherwise, come July 4th this year, because that completes our 250th year. What do you guys see coming, like in the next 3-6 months or the rest of 2026? In the battle and the changes are going to happen in the country? What do you guys think it's going to look like?
I think the most immediate thing that we're going to see as we start to set the stage for primaries is we're finally going to start to see the naming of names within the fraud. We're going to start seeing, hey, Katie Hobbs was doing mortgage fraud with the cartels out there in Maricopa County. Hey, you do have Gavin Newsom, and these people were doing fraud with the money coming in from the fires. And all these things that I'm saying, there are investigators right now on the ground in both these states that are working on these things. I think this is what we're seeing with Waltz and Myers and the investigations going on there, the subpoenas that are already going out there. I think as we get closer to these midterms, because you got to remember, all the stuff that we see in headlines is not meant necessarily for our community, our audience, because our audience already is looking kind of behind the veil of what's being said or what's really being said. So a lot of the headlines and the actions we see at the surface level is designed for the majority of the public that still operates off of Fox and CNN and MSNBC, so they can get a grasp of what's going on. So this affects them as they go into the election cycle. So I think the main thing we're going to see here is we're going to see all these fraud investigations start to come to the surface and who was behind them. And that's just going to destroy the Democrats going into elections. And another thing that me and Josh have been talking about at length is you don't hear the Democrats talking about all the money they raise.
Where's the money?
It's true. That's a good point.
Remember, Remember when Trump
Yep.
came in, Kamala Harris was $1.2 billion in election debt, and Trump said, "We'll pay it off for you. We'll do the nice thing and pay it off for you." Why? Since election day to current day, Donald Trump has brought in over $1.3 billion to the RNC and to his PACs.
So
But you have not heard anything about Democrat fundraising or Democrats making money for fundraising. It's non-existent.
so they don't have the purse for elections. Their voting base is getting deported as we speak. Their money laundering base, which was USAID, any national endowment, the NGOs, those things already got exposed. They can't go through those avenues. So they don't have the ability to launder money. They don't have the purse of already having money. They're losing their foot soldiers and their voting base through all this. They are in a panic.
Yeah.
And every time they try to do something, Trump shows it. He uses it against them because people are seeing what's going on in Minneapolis. People are seeing what just happened a couple nights ago out there in Seattle. You know, you had two of the agents out there that got shot. And so people are seeing this, and it is completely destroying them. So I know a lot of people have been completely worried about midterms. I still encourage everybody, tell everybody to vote, take somebody to vote, same day voting. But I think the next major thing we see is we're going to see a turnout and a win that happens in midterms that is probably bigger than we've ever seen. And there was a lot of panic from people that were like, "Oh, we're losing over 40 people that are not going to be running for re-election in the House." But if you go and you track these people, it's
They're
because
running for governor.
they're running for senators and governors because Trump has tasked them with that. And this goes into the conversation I said earlier surrounding what's going to come with China. When me and Josh were talking about Venezuela and the narco boats, the conversations we're having with a lot of people is the last time we had a war that was done the proper way through a declaration of Congress was all the way, I believe World War II was the last time that happened. Every other war we've had since then, including the ones that me and Jaco have been in, were not done through Congress. It was through the authorization of
War Powers Act,
War
Powers, and then the authorized use of military force 2001 post 9/11.
And so
here's just follow up what you said on the Intel board. As you said it, the D party will cease to exist once it's all exposed. Fake news can no longer control, dampen public awareness of the truth, dark to light. So right there is your drop that says exactly what you said, Alpha. The Democratic Party through all this, when that's why I believe that exposure is likely going to happen between now and then. Never quite thought about it that way, but it makes sense because we learned the D party will cease to exist. And when the elections, when somebody asked on the board, maybe it was on 4chan at the time about the elections coming up, and the answer, which is a bit confusing based on, how history rolled out in the last 6 years, but they said 2020 plus is safe. So we thought, okay, 2020 is safe. How can it be they stole it? Or 2022, all this other bullshit. They said 2020 plus. They didn't give us the exact year, obviously, but that's beyond 2020, safe. And this could be where the vectors collide right here, 2020.
Yeah, it's gonna be a red wave, but also, and I'll give it right back to the Alpha. After the midterms, the Democrats are gonna lose so bad because it's gonna be a red wave that there's going to be a power vacuum and the Democrat Party is going to collapse from it. They're going to wonder what just happened. How did this happen? How did we lose? And there's going to be a power vacuum. And this is where people like Elon Musk, who had the America Party, another America First Party, but it's in the middle that, everybody who hates Trump is going on over to, that will pick up the slack of all the moderates and independents from the vacuum that happens when the Democrats fail.
So you also could see, like Trump said 5 days ago, he's going to cancel the midterms. And if we're in a war situation and there's kinetic activity, which I think we're definitely going into, you're not going to see voting because you're basically going to be hitting these cities pretty hard. So that's a possibility. You're talking about silver. I think silver is going to $250 mid-year and $500 by the end of the year. Into 1,000 plus in the following year. So why? Because silver is going to be used for a lot of these different defense initiatives that we're going into, free energy, probably this Golden Dome, and who knows what else. So it's going to be You think it's like valuable right now in high demand? It's going through the roof.
And then the next major thing I think we are going to see, and this is what I was saying we were talking about before the strike on Venezuela took place, where we snatched up the president, which is still funny to me, is
Me too.
Trump has always weaponized
Oh
that
shit.
they always go against what he says. So all he has to do, I mean, goes into like the whole child's play, reverse psychology. When Trump says this, they take this position. When Trump was talking about the jab, you had Kamala Harris and all said, well, we're not taking it. And every Democrat said, we're not taking it, just to go against him. So I told Josh, I said, watch, because he strikes Venezuela, they're going to say he doesn't have the power to do this. This is tyranny. And then the conversation is of how we always went to war is going to come to the surface. Well, we're in that window. That is what's happening right now.
Yep.
And they went to pass a law in the Senate to prevent President Trump from being able to have those powers. Now, we do have J.D. Vance. He was a deciding vote, voted against it at 5150, which is funny because 5150 means crazy. But it's bringing that conversation up. But now Trump, like I said, he's brought up, well, we still got to do military strikes in Mexico. And so as he does these military, because you're going to see strikes in Mexico against the cartel. And as that happens, then you're going to get like, okay, we really need to do this. We need to secure this so he can't do this no more, which is what Trump wants. You know, a lot of people think Trump will veto it. He's not going to veto it because he's going to force them into position where presidents that come in the future can't use that it will have to be done through Congress, that there won't be the exception to that, which brings us to what Josh says. That's why they're running for governors, and that's why they're running for these Senate positions, because after midterms, when they end up passing this law, before we get into this kinetic conflict with China, we're going to have a Congress that declares that war, not Trump. And that's how all that's going to play out. And that's why he's putting these people into the positions where they're going to be governors and senators.
Interesting.
And constitutional convention.
Well, I tell you that's we got to talk about that for a second, because that's always been a sore spot for me. I've been opposed to a constitutional convention shortly after they started talking about it 15, 20 years ago. And why is it? Because of who shows up there. We want these representatives from the deep state going there. Don't let them touch it. They'll make it worse. And the second thing, the problem isn't that we need a convention. The problem is we haven't enforced the Constitution since 7 years into the founding of the country. We have not enforced what we got. It's just like the absurdity of U.S. Congress. Hey, let's pass a law to force us to enforce those laws that are on the books. Do you know how fucking stupid that is and how insane that is?
Well, they
We gotta
enforced the
pass laws
16th
to
Amendment.
force
I'll
us-
tell you that much. The 16th and the
What's that?
17th.
Say it
They
again.
definitely enforced the 16th and 17th Amendments. Okay, they're definitely enforcing the income tax, right?
Sure.
So how do you repeal that, as Trump has talked about? Well, you need a constitutional convention to repeal that. How do you fortify the Second Amendment and give open carry to everybody and no restrictions on carry? Constitutional convention. How do you add digital Bill of Rights? Preserve your first, your fourth, your fifth amendment rights in the digital environment. Constitutional convention. How do you put term limits on Congress and Senate where they can't serve more than 12 years? Constitutional convention.
Well, then that means that in the preceding year or years, they're stacking Congress with constitutional patriots who are going to vote the right way, or the governors around the country that are going to, obviously, because the states have to vote, the state houses have to vote on these amendments to actually pass and then be, what is it, 3/5 of the country of the states have to support an amendment change. So they're going to need to, basically the swamp's going to have to be gutted from the ground up. So we have the trust of these clowns. They won't be clowns at that point, showing up and voting to make sure this shit gets done. It's done on a national stage and in front of the whole world.
And what made
Could be why we don't have a midterm, because a lot of these knuckleheads are getting arrested as well.
Oh, yeah,
There's
that's true.
tons. I mean, how many are legit? There's probably just a handful.
15,
maybe that's it.
15, I think whenever they passed or they forced, you've seen this, Josh, when they started, the origination of the Farm Claims Bill, the Farm Claims Act, which turns out to be in concept, they call them the SARA. But, whenever I guess I actually believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was Admiral Killian that led that raid on the White House to force Clinton to sign that bill. And when it went into the congressional chambers, there were only 15 congressmen that were legitimate constitutionally to even sign it. They didn't need all 435. At least that's what the scuttlebutt is on that. So when you talk about legitimacy of who's in Congress, it's far lower than we think. It's a handful of people. That's it. No attorney is allowed to serve. Anybody with a law degree is banned from serving in government in the United States federal government. Yet it's loaded with effing attorneys. So they're going to have to clean all of that shit up before we get into my opinion. I mean, you made a great case for a constitutional convention, but it has to be the new players. It's got to be the players that are driven for the benefit of humanity, not for the benefit of a government or themselves.
Agreed.
And I think we're going to see those players get put in place because the deep state doesn't have the purse like it's done before. And to make them panic even more, you had Elon Musk. It was like 3 or 4 days ago. He says, what was it, like 40 million or something like that? He's going to contribute to one of the races in Kentucky to go for one of the America First people. So the deep state's just like, what do we do? And even if they want to get money laundered in, you have Maduro coming out hinting at we're going to drop dimes on some of these people who were involved. I mean, just put yourself in the deep state shoes right now as a deep state politician. Walsh is getting subpoenaed. You're seeing that. Newsom's getting investigated. Venezuela's the talk of the town. You have allegedly whistleblowers are providing this. These people are going to be too afraid to take money from anyone.
Yeah, Omar's under investigation. That whole operation, all that.
You're hearing about military JAG attorneys being sent to different states.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where these people right now are just in self-preservation. They're not even thinking about moving forward like the way their puppet masters want them to. They're just looking at like, I am going to try to either fly under the radar and get my ass out of this, or if they do come and get me, I'm going to try to, negotiate any kind of deal and give them all the information they want, so I don't end up, in a guillotine or Gitmo for the rest of my life.
And they will throw their mother, their grandmother, their children under the bus. They'll throw each other under the bus. That's the funniest thing about when this all happens. Watching them, they're throwing each other under the bus like, I thought we were friends. Fuck you. You're going to Gitmo. He did it all right. That's how they're all going to behave. That they said. Well, first of all, to your point, isn't it amazing? We're talking literally a 2-week period, 2 weeks, where these ice holes are out there like this fairy dust spreader, Jacob Fry, whatever his name is, Fry, the governor. They're out there talking like badass. It's just like the Colombian president. You want to come and get me? Take Maduro. Hey, is Donald home at the White House today? Want to have a conversation? That's how they turn. Watch them in these public situations where now they're addressing all their minions. They went from being badasses to milquetoast pussies. Everything they're saying, they're stumbling over their words. They're stopping and thinking in my next sentence because they're scared shitless. I played something last night. I forget which. Oh, Keith Ellis is the name Ellis?
Keith Ellison.
Ellison, Secretary of State. Look at him 2 weeks ago. Look at him in his latest. These guys are scared shitless now. They're not talking tough anymore because they know what's bearing down on them.
Yep. It's coming. It's going to come down hard on Minnesota. And it's interesting, too, because I was saying this during the 2024 election. Minnesota's House actually turned red for the first time in 10 years.
Really?
And I said, man, Minnesota has the chance to actually be a red state now because things are turning. Now, I think one of the reasons why Minnesota is being targeted is because you can turn Minnesota pretty fast because you have that precipice of conservative voters here that can take over the thievery that was occurring on the voter fraud part. And so now if you begin to remove all the illegal voters, so you have a 51% majority already with conservatives, now you remove all the illegal voters, even if they did cheat, it doesn't equate enough to put them over the top. And I think that's why Minnesota is being targeted first.
Well, that was an onslaught today, guys, of information. That'll give the folks, all of us, a lot to think about. What we should probably do? We should probably reconvene in about 10 days because there's going to be a lot happens over the next 10 days. So maybe let's look at potentially a Monday or something like that, or Tuesday, not next week, but the week after. Just put that, look around in your calendar. Let's see what happens in the coming weeks, week to 10 days, and jump back in here and give another analysis. What do you guys think?
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
And maybe we'll see Mike Lindell, the pillow guy, as the Minnesota
The
guy.
governor.
Yeah, baby.
Is he talking about running?
He's
Yeah.
running. He is running.
He is running. I didn't even know that.
Yep.
I'll be damned.
He's got a chance.
Huh? Yeah.
I
Well,
texted him the other day. I was like, hey, if you need any help, let me know.
Jesse Ventura got it, so I think Mike Lindell will.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, that was pretty awesome when that happened.
But
you
look
know.
what it did to Jesse.
Well, you know what?
That story of Jesse. Oh,
With the day he had it all, and had it all wrapped up. I mean, look, when you can be a governor of a state and the press they can't get in the press room unless they wear their name tag that says hyena. It doesn't say press, it says hyena. If they won't wear it, they don't come in. So what were they doing? They were wearing their press tag says hyena. In fact, he had the whole thing in the palm of his hand until he made a mistake. He made one statement that just finished him off. And he said, religion is simply a crutch for weak people, right? Now think about it.
That's something Jesse.
That's
Ventura would
not
say.
untrue.
he's
We've seen it, right? But he said it 20, 25 years too early. So as soon as he said that, the media tackled him, and his power went downhill from that moment. And that's really what ended his governorship.
well, his wife got cancer too. So, and of course, the CIA called him into his state house and said, "How did you win this race?"
Yep.
Yeah.
You better tell us. I would like to say something real quick, if you guys don't mind,
Sure.
before we wrap up shop. Speaking of new people, new positions, and I want to address the audience. Because I spent so much time in social media, I see all these just normal, everyday, Joe and Janes that are they have brilliant ideas and brilliant theories to what's happening. They just don't have platforms, to where people can hear their message. And I just want to tell, there's people in the audience that are watching the show tonight that have that kind of knowledge and skill set, and just keep putting it out there. Whether you tag one of these guys or myself, put it out there, because doing these shows with these three guys is just crazy awesome to me. And I want the audience to know these guys are my friends, but it was just a few years ago that I was just like you guys in the audience, watching these guys to understand what was going on, so I could know how to take care of my family, to know what choices I'm making. And if somebody would have told me, back in 2019 or 2020, yeah, you'll be doing a show with Mike Jaco and Scott McKay and Josh Reed, I would have been like, you're crazy. But here we are. And I just want to say, guys, that every time we do a show together, I'm still starstruck to be up here with you guys. It's awesome. I'm honored. And I hope that my story gives motivation to people in the audience to be like, you know what, let me just go grab a camera and a microphone and see where it takes me.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that's what the audience needs to understand. Because the other three of us, we've said the same thing, like, holy shit, can you believe that this is really happening? And we started podcasts, but that goes to show you, it doesn't matter who you are. You have no clue what you have the potential to do. All of us did this out of an absolute desperate need. We weren't going to stand by and let the country burn. And I did one podcast. Boom, it went nuclear. That caught me off guard like nothing in my entire. I felt like the next day I walked under Niagara Falls. I was getting pounded. Like, what the? Somebody, I told you this story before. My guy, I can't remember which friend called me up, but he said, dude, that video you did last night, he said, that thing, or he said, that video you did last night's going viral. And I'm like this, I'm like, what video? He said, that YouTube video you did last night. I was like, oh, no shit. He goes, yeah, man. He said, that thing is absolutely going viral. I said, really? He said, yeah, Mike Adams is pushing that thing everywhere. I said, no shit. He goes, yeah, man. I said, who's Mike Adams? I didn't know who Mike Adams was. Now, I'm saying that because, again, people have a tendency, they put us on these pedestals. These guys are so smart. They orchestrated their, move into this realm. Quite honestly, the only person I could say probably knew this was coming was Mike Jaco. He's been doing this shit long time before we were, right? And boom, that's why I'm glad you said that, Alpha, because it's true. There's so much talent and intellectual firepower on this battlefield. We're finding these soldiers on X, TikTok, Instagram. This young girl, I can't think of where she's from. She lives in Canada, but she's got a foreign accent, just dropping bombs constantly all the time. And so, yeah, you folks that are out there doing that, we see you. We know you are a major driver in this war. Keep it up. And if you can get emails to us and we can actually find you in these emails, because they come in by the hundreds of thousands, if we can find you, we'll pull you in and say, hey, tell our audience this is great stuff. So we want, in fact, Nino said this to me. It's why it's important to understand this, what you just said, Alpha. Nino said something to me early on, like the first 5 or 6 months we were going to, and he said something, and I said, well, actually, I said, Nino, I go on shows of a lot of really small channels. He goes, really? I said, yeah. I said, because, some people say, well, how big's their show if I'm going to come on? I'm like, wow, who you fighting the war for? You or the country? I said, I go on a lot of little shows because there's great people out there and I want my audience to see them. We don't need we don't need 10,000 generals on this battlefield. We need 3 million soldiers. And those 3 million podcast soldiers are the ones that are reaching other people that don't know who we are or any other great podcasters, but they're friends of these guys. Hey, check it out. I just had Alpha Warrior or Josh Reed on my podcast. You're not a podcast? A knucklehead like you, I've known you your whole life. You can't do a podcast. Check this out. Boom. They see it and they send it to all their friends. Hey, check this out. Our buddy's doing a podcast, had Alpha Warrior on. No way. Watch it. And then people's thinking, wow, he must be worth watching. All of you are worth watching. We need to keep fueling our recruitment process. My camera always goes a little, see, even this is proof positive. I still have a Fisher Price studio 5 or 6 years later, $200, hasn't changed a thing. And we haven't been run out of here yet. So keep doing the great work out there, folks, because we want to find you and we want to bring on our podcast too, because you're doing amazing work.
And the last thing that I'd like to add, shameless plug, but it's for something free. I want to just let everybody know it is free. And it's actually going to be turned into a book. This guy down here is going to help me expand on it. On my Substack, it's the last article. It's alphawarrior.substack.com, and it's called "What is the Plan?" And we're moving into a new phase of what's happening. That a lot of people that hate the truth community, hate the Q community, hate America, just hate good. One of the things we've all heard them attack is, oh, you're a trust the plan, bro. And one of the things that I've done to counter these people and I've tried to train people on is when they come and tell you that, ask them, what's the plan? And and then tell them, well, how are you attacking something if you don't even know what it is? You don't know if it's a good plan or a bad plan because you don't even know what it is. The flip side of that is I see a lot of people that do understand that there is, operations and good guys that are at play. They do have faith in this plan that's unfolding. They see that it's happening, but then when they're confronted with this, they don't, and people say, well, what is the plan? These people don't really know how to explain it. And so that kind of creates, lack of confidence and doubt in them. So put together a Substack article / book, because it is over 22,000 words right now.
It's a book.
And then this guy is going to expand upon it right here. And then with that final copy, we're going to turn it into a book. But this part right now is free. And it's laid out into 17 phases, CAC, and it brings you through the things that have already happened, an assessment and analysis of that to make it make sense, kind of where we're at right now, and kind of a concept of what things to come may look like, broken down into phases. It's done through a Marine who can chew crayons. And one of the greatest feedbacks that I've had from it so far is, man, I actually understand this. Like I get it. I see how this happened, and things that are answered in there, not to every specific scenario, but the formula is why were certain things allowed to happen? And you're going to walk away from this with an understanding of that. And I'll tell you guys, if you read this, you will be ahead of 95% of humanity. I promise you that. If you take time to read it. I threw in videos in there because I'm a person that I like pictures and videos. So I made it very Marine grunt friendly. Okay, you guys. And again, that's alphawarrior.substack.com. It's free. Share it out. Whatever you guys want to do.
And since it's 22,000 words, you can literally just go take the link to the article, throw it in the Chat GPT, and tell Chat GPT to read it for you.
Say that again.
So you can take a link to a Substack, you can throw it in the Chat GPT. Then you turn on the audio version of Chat GPT and have it read the article to you.
Okay. Interesting. That is very cool. Very cool. Because sitting down for me to anymore in my life to read, I was a voracious reader my whole life until now. I just don't take the time.
I like to
read
listen.
anymore.
I like to listen these days.
Well, yeah, you can listen. Yeah, you listen while you're working, listen while you're driving.
When you guys go to the Substack stuff like that, just X that stuff out and skip it. That's Substack that wants to get you guys to subscribe and stuff like that. I mean, do it if you want to. I'm not complaining, but it is free. As a matter of fact, I will share it with you guys real quick just so you guys can see. I'll share the table of contents with you guys, just to give everybody. Let's see. Allow. I did it wrong. Let me try this one more time.
You still have that picture of me up on your desktop, bro? That's cool.
He does.
My hero. Let's see. I think. All right. Now, do you guys see it?
Yep. What's the plan?
Yeah.
All right. Let me zoom in on this. Did I miss it up?
No,
Nope,
it's not
you're good.
Zoom, but it's there.
Okay. So here is, because I can't see what I'm showing you guys. I just see the green bar around it. But here's the table of contents right there. If you guys want to take a screenshot of that or anything like that to kind of get an idea of what's in this article.
Gosh, neutralizing chaos. That's going to be great. I'm going to get to that. I think you might break my reading sabbatical here, Alpha.
So, but yeah, no, I enjoyed this, you guys. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
Well,
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
this is one of the faster roundtables we put together. I think we just shored this up this morning, actually. So makes it a lot more fun. Alpha, you were a pleasant surprise today. Josh sent me a text, said, "Hey, Alpha's going to join us." They say, "Is that cool?" I'm like, "Is that cool?" I can never get to. He's always doing something else. Yeah. He's actually available. This is a setup of some sort. Anyways, so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There's today's roundtable. Josh Reed leading the charge. Mike Jaco, again, Alpha Warrior. People doing great work. I'm just here to kind of be the choir director because I learn a ton from these guys every time we get them together. So keep an eye out for roughly the next 10 days. If something big doesn't break, in the next 7, we'll see you probably in about 10 days, guys. I'll send you guys a text. We'll orchestrate that. All right. On behalf of these 3 superheroes and Tomahawk, I'll stay with that. Patriot, Street Fighter, Alpha.
Good night, guys.
Got it, gentlemen.
And with that, probably weren't expecting to see me at almost 2 a.m. here on the West Coast, which is the best coast. I hope you guys appreciated that round table. We all wanted to put it out there for you guys, different days, different times, and hopefully that works. And again, we will probably be doing the next round table at the end of this week coming up. Again, pray for each other. Looks like a lot of you guys are getting hit with that snowstorm. And I will close this out with the last commercial. Let me bring this up on Rumble. And if you guys are following me on social media, you've seen me in a space right now. But here we go, folks. They can cancel your accounts, freeze your cards, decide what you're allowed to buy, say, or support. Big banks and financial institutions have total control and they use it. That's why financial independence matters more now than ever. Introducing Rumble Wallet, a wallet built for real freedom. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company. Buy digital assets like Tether, Tether Gold, and Bitcoin in one secure place. No permission, no middleman, no cancel button. And when you want to support the creators you actually believe in, you can use that Rumble Wallet app to directly tip the creators securely, instantly, and without interference. This isn't a credit line that they can shut off. It's your wallet permanently. Yours to protect your future, yours to protect your family. When the system fails, when the institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. Rumble Wallet isn't about politics, it's about freedom, ownership, and protecting what's yours. So take control today. Download Rumble Wallet now and step away from the big banks for good. True ownership, true protection, true financial freedom. And you'll see that little tip jar right about there somewhere. If you want to scan that bad boy, it'll take you there as well as you can drop a little something for Alpha. So again, hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side. God bless. Semper Fi.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
Have you ever read the ingredients on the fiber supplements you're taking? Have you ever read the ingredients on the probiotic supplements you're taking? Well, you know, you're going to find things like corn syrup, preservatives, cornstarch, wheat dextrin, hydrolyzed corn, hydrolyzed gums. These are the kinds of things you're going to find in a lot of the supplements you're taking that are supposed to be good for your gut. And we all know how important the gut is for our overall health. Everything from acid reflux to mental health to irritable bowel syndrome to cardiovascular health to athletic performance. The research just comes out every day on how important our gut microbiome is to our overall health. Well, as an entrepreneur, we thought, hey, let's do this a little bit better. There's got to be something that is both better from an ingredient standpoint and also from a functional standpoint. And that's why we have Good Brew. Well, the Good Brew, no non-GMO, organic, no wheat dextrin, gluten-free, 2 ingredients, organic. Hey, you can put it in your coffee every day. What's better than that? Put it in your oatmeal. Put it in your water, whatever you like, but it goes great with coffee. In fact, I just spoke with a chef this morning who was trying the product, and he said, hey, I drink my coffee black, and it was fantastic. So he's now a true believer in Good Brew himself. So you guys support us, and we think it's going to be a great thing for everybody.